Snake and Banner is going to be out. Definitely. I mean, on your channel, also on the side, definitely go and check out the Forest Reflections. Fucking straight fire. Second episode dropped today. If you're watching this live, you can go and listen to that afterwards. I listened to the first one, loved it. Forrest is always such a fun guy, you know, so it's like just easy to talk to, it seems like, and you've got some good questions as well. So top drawer content, guys, go and check it out.
By the way, don't you find it curious, Semmler, that I've been told my entire CSGO career that I hate Forrest hates me, and that I would never have a chance of speaking to him. But it's weird, in the interview, we almost came off like people who knew each other, and I sort of almost knew some of his answers before he answered them. It's one of those mysteries. I know, it's weird, isn't it? It's one
fascinating. Yes. Well, if you were interested in getting to the bottom of that mystery, go ahead and listen to the episode. It's over on Thorin's main channel. And also, big thanks to everybody who's leaving us reviews and likes and following on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. That's really sick. So it definitely helps. Leave a comment for the Algo God. Okay, moving on. Astralis hires another cheater is the header for this one.
Wait a minute, was this Groundhog's Day or something? And I take your little hand in mine and love you. What is this again? Oh, what is it? 2020 again? I think I've already heard this. Oh, his name was Ave, right? Or was it Hunden? Or
which one was it?
Well, mate, if you don't know, fans, they've hired another band fucking coach. This is mental, this story. Come on, hit me with it.
Well, dude, already it's just as far as the announcement goes. Astralis talent Castle joins as coach. Vigo leaves roster. This is the announcement, and it's 3 paragraphs long, super slick. As our Counter-Strike talent roster prepares for the upcoming season, a few changes came with it. So Madi has been replaced by Peter Toftbo Ardenskjold Castle. So we'll be relieving Madi. I gave it a shot, guys. I did the best I could. It's Danish. We also say thank you to the long and faithful service to Victor Vigo, who has decided to pursue another path, which we'd like to honor. So this is the thing. They're bringing this guy on as the coach for the talent team. And according to you, he has a history where he kind of got caught as well, didn't he?
According to me?
Well, I'm just throwing it out there. I don't actually know the backstory on this one.
In this article it says it, though.
Really?
I mean, no, it was said on Twitter. Someone said on Twitter. Richard said on Twitter,
it's definitely not in the Astralis.
Yeah, it was. No, it's not.
I'm not going to bring that up.
Richard said basically that guy's banned. Like, I'll double check now. So his name was Castle.
Okay, he's on the banned list.
I'll be able to check if he is. Banned Valve. This will Google it. There we go. Let me have a look on here. What was his alias?
Castle. Casle.
All right, without a T. Yeah, he's banned. He was banned bug abuse. It ends after the second major of 2023. He was with the team called Maquinas at the time, which appears to be doesn't even have a thing on Wikipedia. So yeah, this is a banned coach. So basically, yes, to rewind, this is how it went in Astralis, right? Zonic technically did use a coach bug, but he didn't intentionally use it. Apparently, it was one of those ones that was just like an innocent one, and that's why famously he wasn't banned from the last major, and he was like allowed to fucking be like got like a fucking stay of execution or something on that one. Obviously, when Zonic was leaving the team, there was the story that they were trying to sign Hunden, who there was another story we addressed last week, that actually they have signed Hunden. He just works with them on their AIM Labs project. And even though he definitely doesn't coach, an insider says he could be coaching, striker already. Well, is he or isn't it? Well, anyway, whatever. We know that fucking bozo's like off Sesame Street. So then, obviously, then we go to the next detail. They even said they'd give him a job afterwards, which even implies like he is working for us, probably is coaching. We won't say he's coaching, but we would give him a job as a coach. Suck my dick. Like, it's almost like that, the way they fucking replied to the story of Strauss. So then, of course, after that, we then have the situation where they then hire Dave, also a banned coach, if people don't know. After it didn't work out with Dave, they fired Dave and they brought in Trace, who was the academy team at the time, the talent squad one. He hasn't had any bans as far as I know. But now, not only was Hunden behind the scenes still working there, but now we find out that the new talent coach himself's a coach banned. Now, why is this relevant, you might ask? Because one, Astralis famously was one of the teams that Hunden used the bug against, and part of the response of that, it was actually the whole reason that shitstorm targeted the players, not just Hunden, was that Nicola Nyholm, one of the founders and owners of Astralis, actually went out there and basically directly called the players out, tagged them all, and said, like I want to see you in my office on Monday. And the mad implication even being, because Nicola Nyholm himself can't keep all the facts straight, is why would they know about your office? Oh, that's right, you used to own Heroic when you used to pretend said to Richard that you didn't own Heroic at any point in time. Oh, it's almost like you feel like they're your players from a few years. Exactly. Like the whole thing was so fucking pathetic, mate. So the idea that you're going to publicly call people out for using the bog and like imply they're like scum or something, and then after all that, you're going to hire repeatedly people who've cheated using that bog. Like what it shows is, it's like the old joke about left-wing people, isn't it? It's like, yeah, of course they have double standards. It's the only bloody standards they have. That's the old joke with fucking Astralis, isn't it? So my joke, I used to say it on Twitter as just banter. Now it looks like it's real. As far as I can tell, Nicola Nyhan wasn't mad that Hunden cheated. He's mad that he was cheating against Astralis, not for Astralis. Like now it almost looks like it's a prerequisite on your resume. You have to have cheated before these cunts will hire you. Like, look, I know Astralis is bad at fucking scouting, but just because someone's seen part of a demo, no one else has. Like, whatever. Like, I can't handle it, mate, because, like, this is already the greatest scumbag org of all time. I mean, listen, fair play. Nip's still in the fucking mix, giving him a good shout for it.
There may be some runner-ups there.
You've always got to give it up to the old champion, you know, until all the fights beaten out of them. They're still round, still a contender. But yeah, man alive, these orgs just, it never stops, the piss take, does it? It just continues. Because in this scenario, Semmler, why is it even necessary? Hire anyone else but someone who was banned, you know what I mean? And also, I'll throw this in there. You're hiring people who are banned for cheating at the pro level to coach kids.
Yeah.
Do I even need to go into a rant on that?
No, you don't.
Come on.
I mean, we're talking about having appropriate role models, you know, for your how are you going to conduct yourself as a pro going forward? I mean, if anything, like what, do Astralis just subscribe to the saying, you know, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying? You know, that's the message that they want to send to their next generation of pro players, where it's just like, yes, actually, you know, low key, we do actually encourage this behavior. And if you get caught, that's the problem. Or if you use it against us, that's the problem. But if you're using it, I mean, whatever you do, you know, like whatever you got to do to win, get out there, champ. It feels like that's the issue. That's if anything, that's the real issue with this. It's just what kind of a message are you sending to your up and coming players? I mean, if you served your ban, if you've done a wrong and you've served your ban time, and I mean, then you should rehabilitation.
You should have a job again.
You can have a discussion about it.
Yes,
but if you're hiring people, if you're hiring players and coaches and et cetera, you know, before they're banned, before they've served their time, you know, to come in here, get out of here. Then that eliminates the idea of a punishment. There's no punishment at that point, and there's no redemption. So I don't get this whole angle from Astralis. Well, I mean, you do if you realize for them it really is just pulling out all the stops, any stop possible to get ahead and to do something, because their stock continues to dip. The
literally
value
and metaphorically, yeah.
There you go. Yeah, it just continues to go off a cliff. So they're just.
By the way, the point you made is a really relevant one as well, because I had the same angle. The reason it's so silly that we're allowing other teams to hire people's cheating coaches is the logic becomes similar. The only person actually punished is the team that he originally coached for, because logically your rival then can benefit from having him. Like, I even said this myself. It's funny, Astralis were the only ones who actually listened. I even said, look, this is all before we knew he'd done all the scumbag stuff. But when Hunden originally got banned, I even said, mate, I would just privately hire him, tell him he's not officially a coach, but just come in, scout my players, work with them, have coffee with them, and just tell him what to do. Like, I would have him off the books doing it, because he obviously was mega at his job. He was a really good scout and brought up loads of players. Like, I'm amazed someone didn't do it. But the point is, like, of all the people to do it, you can't do it if you're Astralis, in light of what we said, the precedent of what you've said publicly about this exact matter, and Hunden, for fuck's sake. Like, the whole thing's just
scandalous. There are no standards. There's nobody to hold anybody to those kinds of standards. It's all like snapshots. That's the real thing. It's like everybody's living in the present. The past doesn't exist. The future doesn't exist. It's all in that moment. So long as you pose correctly in that moment and get your good boy pats, then it's fine, right? You can let it slide. It's the way that ESL handle their PR. It's the way that all these guys behave themselves online. So long as you're in the moment saying the correct thing and behaving yourself appropriately, following the mob, then you're good. But you don't have to worry about there being anybody who's going to go back and try to hold you accountable or hold you to a standard, because clearly the community don't care, or they don't care enough. Or if they do, I mean, you're willing to run the risk that they do, even, because it's so often the case that it just gets swept under the rug, or nobody really cares. There's no real noise made about it. There's no repercussions. The one case where perhaps there is going to be repercussions is like, ah, shit, you got caught. But it's almost worth running the risk regardless. It's a silly sort of situation.
Oh, by the way, there's one thing I've got to add, but it was technically from the last part of the convo. There was one angle we forgot to hit. This was the angle we forgot, because this in itself was, I even thought the inference from this was quite disturbing. You know, on the 1xBet story, right? That was one of those articles as well, Semmler, where you can't just skim this article because there's so many facts and details.
Yeah,
And
you have to read it. It's very well done.
When you get to the very end of it, though, there's a line that everyone else just seems fine with. I can't handle it. There's a line at the end where it says they asked ESIC about this topic, and ESIC didn't reply, declined comment. As in, the Esports Integrity Coalition doesn't even have a statement like, we will look into this, or like, obviously, they don't have anything. And here's the problem, guys. Do you want to know when Richard and the others were trying to get the ESIC out there, their name out there, and get them a good rep and make people take them seriously? One thing they always stressed was there's this whole conspiracy theory that because one of the initial people who funded part of ESIC, and I think still fund them now, is ESL, obviously all the other TOs were worried. Maybe that's why I'm thinking out people like Blast weren't involved. They were all worried. Maybe ESL secretly puppets them. Well, when you then find out ESL's being involved with a really dodgy sponsor that's done all this fucked up stuff, and then someone goes, well, Integrity Coalition, what do you think about that? And you go, I decline to comment. You've allowed every conspiracy theory to seem true. You've set the grounds where that does seem like a plausible scenario now. That's one of those reasons why I've never been able to fully get on board with that company as well. It's like, mate, you're either going to be the police or you're not. If you're not going to be, if you have topics you don't want to do, then shut up, calling yourself Esports Integrity Coalition. The name, here's the thing about that name. You do not get given the respect from that name. You must live up to that name and you'll get the respect for it. You don't just come in from that. Because I even said the same thing, Rich, like, who the fuck is this Ian Smith guy? Like, first of all, the only Ian Smith I'd be interested in talking to is probably dead now, mate. Straight fire reference. And then secondly, all I'll say is this, like, this guy isn't even a guy I know from CS. He's not like a guy, like, it'd be one thing if, he'd run like ESL for years, or maybe he was the guy who brought face shit in the city. That'd be one thing. That guy I could listen to. This guy's just a random guy who came along and started telling everyone what to do. I hate fucking woke scolds. I hate them. Anyway, I thought that was just a bit disturbing that, like, E6 apparently just turning a blind eye to, or just won't even give a comment.
I think you're bang on the money. It's just, there's not enough skin in the game for actually. I mean, that's the thing. There's not enough skin in the game, and they run the risk of getting on ESL's bad side if they actually do anything. And ESL now own the CSGO scene, and when the majority of your business is in CSGO, well, then there you go. It really just goes to show that there's so much power that's been accrued by ESL now. It's just worth mentioning. It's just worth pointing out. I mean, eventually, like, ultimately, it was the game that was being played in terms of the competition between the orgs. I always was a proponent of having that kind of free market competition. But what happens is that, well, what happened essentially is just that the money just became too big too fast. And so if you were able to get on top of that money, well, then it destabilized everything. Had it been normal competition between teams, going after sponsors and, the market kind of stabilized, like the price nothing upsetting the price, then it could have continued. But you get that cash injection, and it just completely throws everything out of whack. And now we're wound up with a monopoly. So, well, with a monopoly in essence, I mean, Blast exists at the behest of ESL basically, so long as Blast play along. I mean, Blast now, they're running their own game with the Abu Dhabi Gaming Conference themselves. They've got a 3-year deal there. They didn't waste any time at all going and getting their own deal.
By the way, I don't blame them. I even said
blame them at that point.
One of the first things I thought when ESL was bought by that company was, well, this is even worse because now we've all been totally unfair to Blast. Like, we've all treated Blast like some sort of pariah. By the way, I'll even give you a good one because you'll like this because you know the same world I do. I thought that was as disgusting a double standard of behaviour as that famous story in 2019 where a bunch of my friends who are big name casters came out and said Starladder was like 2 months late paying them. Do you know the problem with that, fans? The same casters didn't tell you ESL sometimes would take 1 year to pay them. So what they were doing basically was just notice how, first of all, notice how it's always ESL who benefits from doing the same corrupt behaviour. And then secondly, they benefit in a really fucked up way. They now have a competitive advantage where they can just pay their people months and months late. You do realise if I can just pay you 6 months later and Semmler has to pay you 1 month later, I have an insane edge over Semmler. So you're already making the rich richer and just punishing the small guy. So in the same way, because Blast was too small and this was just a sponsorship, we all bashed them and said we won't work with them, you have to get rid of it. So they got rid of it. Then ESL just gets bought out lock, stock and barrel by the same evil fucks. And you're all like, well, too big to fail, so we'll allow it. Like, you're so feckless. Because here's the thing. I hope none of you people who have opinions like this actually talk politics publicly. Because when you talk politics, they should do this, they should do that. Well, what do you do in your space? In your space where you actually have some influence, what did you do? Just let the rich get richer and punish the small guy again. You're the dickhead who makes politics like it is, you morons. You're literally the people who ruin the world. I've always said this, mate. Usually the people who actually do the wrongdoing aren't the ones who spoil the world. It's the ones who allow it. That's the problem. You can only get away with so much yourself. People just, as widespread allowing this behavior, though, means the esports is incentivized to be corrupt.
It's in human nature to look out for oneself, right? I mean, at the end of the day, when you're thinking about your own Skrilla, and is it worth standing up? Is it worth rocking?
To them, there's no upside. Yeah, exactly.
There's no upside. There's no risk.
There isn't.
No return on that. On that.
It's funny because this is exactly the same argument that used to actually also be used back in the day about the cheating thing. Look, most people, I'll tell you straight up in the scene, didn't think people cheated, or they only thought the odd player like Flusher did or something. It wasn't very widespread, the idea there was cheating. But there was actually people who I have had conversations with in the industry that used to make my eyebrows just go up, like, what the hell? Like, and their take for real was, what if there's too many cheaters? Wouldn't we have to just shut the whole scene down? It's better we just let them get away with it then. And I remember being like, I'm obviously different to you than me, because I am a hellfire and brimstone guy. I'm like, burn them all to the ground if they're in. My joke. I even had this joke, by the way, when the coach ban happened. I was like, this is some Sodom and Gomorrah shit, mate. If there ain't 10 good people in esports, burn it to the ground. Fuck it. It's over. It needs to be cleansed. Like, we can't continue this scene. So I'm of a different take, but a lot of people think the same thing as you, Semmler. Like, essentially, if the net consequence is too big, then shouldn't we just sort of like all agree to turn a blind eye? Like, can't it just be business as usual, guys? Don't rock the boat, all that jazz.
Sure, that's that. Why not? Why not? It's there's no point in there's no principle, like dying on principle. That's not a concept anymore. So it's interesting to see how it's just interesting to keep tabs on it and to see how it keeps progressing through. I mean, there are people who do make noises, and there are definitely, it's not all black, but it's something that's worthwhile to keep an eye on.
Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or be a pleb and don't.